Hello, beautiful moms and entrepreneurs. My name is Charisse Walker, and I'm your host of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. This is a place where we come together to learn, grow, and inspire. So sit back, relax, and let's get started. Hello, Unbreakable Mompreneurs. My name is Charisse Walker, your host, and today I'm here with Jeaneen Tang, and she is a speech language pathologist. And today we're going to talk about language and how she's developed some methods to be able to help our children be able to talk better.
Exactly.
So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
My name is Jeaneen Tang. I am a speech language pathologist for almost 23 years. I have an 11-year-old son who has special needs. He had a fall when he was 13 months old and had a brain injury. Emergency craniotomy, and a few days later he had a stroke. So our world changed. He's 11 now. He just graduated from 5th grade and is moving on to middle school. He's insane. I've been working in early intervention specifically for the last, I guess, 18 years. And I really saw a gap of parent education and training that I feel that we can definitely increase the awareness and introduce some strategies that'll help to decrease the number of children that are maybe normal developing, but just haven't been introduced on how to speak, how to practice language, how to create environments that promote language and speech. So that's where I'm heading towards now, creating a greater impact on the world.
Okay, that's fantastic. So with that, let's back up a little because speech language, is it only speech language, or does it start with the brain and how the brain sends the messages to be able to speak? Like, walk me through that process.
So where I'm focusing now on the child development is sometimes children do have a language difficulty in the brain, right? They can't process what they understand. They can't process how to express it. Sometimes there's a disconnection between the motor part of the brain where you want to say something, but your brain can't communicate to your mouth and articulators how to say the different words.
Okay.
So there's all that. Where I would love to focus is on the preventative part of speech, where we can introduce different ways to what I call play dumb, right? As caregivers, parents, educators, even we think we're really good at anticipating what a child needs. So we're really great. We're super smart. We don't want them to cry. We want them to have everything that they could possibly need or want available on hand. And in a sense, that's a detriment to the child because we are over anticipating what they need. And by playing dumb, we mindfully under anticipate what they might need. We might know, but we're going to wait and create environments where they have to use their words, whether it be signs or actual words or vocalizations or pointing and simple things. If children aren't talking, you can use things like offering choices shoulder width apart. So, if you offer something too close together, you don't know where they're looking. But if you offer it shoulder width apart, you can see what they're looking at, provide the vocabulary, like, do you want an apple or banana? And then wherever they look, oh, you want a banana, let's do that. And so it's by creating environments where you can promote them to use their language independently, that's really important. And then the sabotage part of it all is, making sure that we are creating opportunities for them to practice that language.
Right.
So during snack time, maybe just give 1 or 2 pieces of the snack rather than a whole bowl, right? Maybe have a favorite toy in sight but out of reach. Maybe have a toy within a container that they can't open that by themselves and they need to ask you, open please, more toy, or like bubbles are great, right? Because you blow the bubbles and then you need to do it again. So having them ask for more bubbles please, and whether it be signing or whatever, and then, having this what we call language bombardment.
Mhm.
So you might work on a target word, but expand that a little bit further. So like bubbles, more bubbles. I want more bubbles. I want more bubbles, please.
Mhm.
So expanding, I call it scaffolding the language. So starting out small and then going to a larger sentence.
You would never think how we teach children how to talk, because
Yeah.
I mean, just listening to all that, I'm like, oh my gosh, that is a lot that sometimes we subconsciously do, and other times we subconsciously, like you said, we anticipate. And so, like, I know my husband has a sister who I think she didn't talk till she was 4, not because she couldn't, but because everybody talked for her. So
Absolutely.
why would she
Absolutely.
say anything? Because they always finished her sentences and they said things. And so she's just like, okay.
Yeah. A lot of times those kids are very smart and they're like, okay, well, if I don't have to talk, then okay.
Yeah.
And so a lot of parents that I work with, they'll read my book and then they'll be like, and I've been working with them already on these strategies, and they're like, I didn't realize how much I had to interact with my child. We think, okay, of course you're going to interact with your child, but some parents just think that the child will naturally just
Mhm.
start talking. As long as you're feeding them and changing them and taking care of them,
Right.
really do need to get right down to their level. You need to vocal play. You need to, have them feel like they are a part of the conversation, even if they're not saying actual words.
Yeah, I didn't really think about that because I have 6 kids. And so we taught sign language to some of them and others, they refused to learn it. It was very, very interesting because the child's personality, but it wasn't until last night I actually sat down with my kids and they wanted to watch Boss Baby. Okay, they've seen
Oh,
this many,
yeah.
many times. I have never.
Oh.
I've never seen it. And especially the beginning part where I never thought about it, where he's just crying and crying, and the parents are just frantic and they're moving all over because he's crying and we got to give him stuff. And I thought, wow, to some people that really is that they just allow the kid to get whatever they want by
Yeah,
crying. And
yeah,
instead use your words, right? Because the bigger brother, he walks in, he sees that the kid is in the crib talking on the phone with the fake
yeah,
phone.
yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And it made me think for a second. I'm like, wait a second. If we don't start taking control and teaching our children things, then that they do act like these little, and
Yeah,
again,
they
I'm not
do.
talking baby, but they whine to
Yeah.
get their way and they get it.
Yeah, and they know how to, they're smart. They know how to like
They
make
know
that
it.
certain cry or that whine, and
Mhm.
then I'm gonna start a tantrum.
No,
And
no, not the
you know,
tantrum.
it's kids. I'm sure you've seen,
Yeah.
your older kids
Mhm.
talk for your younger kids.
Yeah. Mhm.
A lot of that happens too. It's like if there's an older sibling, the sibling wants to be a great brother or sister,
Right.
and they're like, oh, but they need this and they need that. And so it's like they also, the older siblings kind of need to learn that let's reel it back and
Yeah.
let's let the child speak.
And I think because there's a big age gap with ours. And so my youngest two actually started walking at 9 months old because they just wanted to run with their older siblings. Because, like I said, there's an age gap. But it's true to watch how, I mean, the last two are very close in age. And so she could have totally babied the other one, but
Oh
she
yeah.
was better. Right. And so I love the dynamic of children, but I do think it's important, like you talk about, making sure that we teach them that this is their expectations. Like you do need to talk. Tell me what you want, when you
Yeah.
can.
Yeah, absolutely. And I say there is a fine line between not being able to do it and then being needing the stretch of like, okay,
Right.
now you have to do it.
Mhm.
Yeah, it's not like there's some kids who are definitely not, they can't talk, right? They can't communicate. Those are the kids who really need like intensive speech therapy.
Mhm.
So there's like that fine line of not being able to do that and then slowly stretching them and creating a greater like need for them to use your words and
Mhm.
do the work.
Yeah, nope, I agree with that. So tell me about your book that you
So, so I say it's, it took me just over a year to write it, but it was, 20 years of thought and in the making. So it was great to have that come to fruition. And it was published in April.
Okay.
and the audiobook is getting recorded right now. I just booked a narrator, so I'm
Okay.
super excited. I thought about recording it myself, but I'm like, it would just take too long for me to read it and then have to figure out how to edit it and then upload it. I'm like, I'm gonna pay somebody who already has been narrating books.
Okay.
So it's good. It's meant to be for parents, caregivers, educators. My speech therapy colleagues are like, this should be like textbook, that students in speech therapy programs need to read because it's a
Wow.
really simple. I kept it super conversational.
Mhm.
It has the backstory of my son and my backstory of how I started speech in the field of speech therapy,
Mhm.
and just some great, easy, simple strategies that parents can use. And one of the simplest ones is to slow our speech down,
Mhm.
right? Because we tend to speak too quickly sometimes, and kids get overwhelmed, and we try to say too much to them at one time.
Right. Hmm.
Really slowing it down, having that layering of vocabulary and building that up to sentences. That language bombardment is really important.
Hmm.
Something simple as that. And then I also like to lean on the multimodal sensory, right, to learn things. So some people learn visually, some people learn auditorily, some people learn tactily. So like clapping syllables out, elongating, having things said to a nursery rhyme kind of melody
Wow.
as
Hmm.
well, because it pulls from the right side of your brain, which is the music, and the left side of the brain, which is language. And it
Hmm.
kind of melds those together to help to solidify the words, and be able to have kids, because the kids can sing songs, right?
Hmm.
But they might not be able to say like, I want more water, you
Right.
know, might be able to sing The Wheels on the Bus, or at least hum it,
Hmm.
or understand that there is a longer sentence and utterances and that.
That's so true because I have a son. I mean, I have special needs as well. And if I go and say, "Hey, I want you to do da 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 da," he's like, "Here, still."
Yeah.
And what we realize is it's because of the processing. Like they have processing issues, and so it's like, okay, she told me to go do this. So does that mean? And so now he's analyzing all the stuff, and yet I'm over here. And so I mean, we learned this a long time ago, but sometimes we start to just boo 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 boo, and then he's overloaded. We're like, oh, let's back up again. And so
Yeah.
I think I'm excited for your book because even though my kids are grown, it's still how do you communicate and what can you do to help them? Because
Yeah, absolutely.
when they're
Yeah, I
older.
started sequencing and scheduling with my son since he was little.
Right.
Like, let's eat breakfast. We're gonna brush our teeth and change our clothes. Something super simple, super functional.
Mhm.
And then you move on. You're like, okay, we're gonna get dressed. We're gonna go to school, and then X,
Mm.
Y, and Z. And there's having those little sequences get longer and longer. And now, nowadays my son will be like, "Oh, mom, we forgot to do this." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, okay."
Ah.
You learn to expand their what say to them based on how they learn. And when they're littles and when they have processing issues, you start really small. First, we're going to do this, then we're going to do that.
Mhm.
And then you can build upon that. Then you do three, and then you do four, and then kind of have them be accountable for their own schedule themselves.
I love that. That's great. So, your son is only, you said he's 11 right now, right? But you've been in speech language pathology for 20 plus years.
Yes.
So it's very interesting. I mean, you obviously didn't get in for that reason. What got you into this line of this industry?
I wanted to help people. I knew I wanted to help people in some way. And I thought it was going to be physical therapy, because I played sports through
Mhm.
high school. I did gymnastics since I was 5,
Oh,
and my grandfather passed away when I was 8. And so I felt like I could not do enough for him before he passed,
mhm.
and I wanted to help people.
Mhm.
But at the time when I was finishing undergraduate studies, I noticed that everybody was going into physical therapy, and I was like, oh, I don't know. It just seemed like
Ah,
a very
those-
saturated
Mhm.
thing.
Yep.
And I did performance speech in high school and college, and someone mentioned, well, have you thought about speech therapy? And at the time, I didn't really know what speech therapy was, but I was like, take a look at it. And I was going to school up in Oregon, but I'm from Hawaii.
Oh.
So I looked at the University of Hawaii and they had a program for speech therapy, a master's program. And I was like, well, why don't I try that out and see how it goes? I'll be home.
Hmm.
And then they had, there's a shortage of speech therapists.
Yeah.
Always, there's always been a shortage. And so my school district was looking for speech therapy students in order to be speech therapists in the schools. And so they offered stipends. So if you work for us for 3 years after you graduate, we'll give you
Wow.
a amount of money. So grad school was basically free. So
Hmm.
that was helpful. And I'm really glad I went into this field because I do, work with little kids, but also work with adults. And in the hospital, I don't have to change diapers like the physical therapist do. There's a lot less like gross things that you do, I think.
Hmm.
Clean mouths that are really disgusting sometimes, but for the most part, it's much less like labor intensive.
And a lot more lasting, I think.
Yeah, yeah, you can do it for a longer time.
Hmm. No, that's true. So, what are the top strategies that parents can start implementing with their children today to help with language development?
Definitely slow the speech down. Definitely vocal play if the kids aren't talking, right? So a child might be babbling, they're like ba ba ba, but how can you change that into something else? So when we think about how we create sound, we have the air that goes out of our lungs past our vocal cords, but then we shape our sounds with our mouth.
Hmm.
So like, if we're thinking about how we move our mouth, that's how the different sounds are going to be formed.
Hmm.
A lot of vocal play, a lot of facial play, playing with the tongue, the lips, the jaw,
Hmm.
seeing what kind of different sounds they could make, right?
I like that.
Um, yeah, so like in the mirror when you're brushing your teeth, or if you have a big closet mirror in the room, you can do some crazy things. Also, uh, any kind of vehicle or animal noise is great. Some kids don't know how to imitate even that. That's
Hmm.
creating the sound is really important.
Yep.
And then also when kids start to babble and have inflections like adult speech, keeping that conversation going, right?
Hmm.
Like some parents like, I don't know what they're saying. I'm like, well,
Yeah.
what do you think they're saying? You always have an opinion about what they could possibly be saying. So kind of responding to that and keeping that conversation fresh and having the child feel like they're engaged
Hmm.
with you. Yeah.
One of my special needs, you can tell when he's starting to get flustered because he mumbles. And so you can't understand. He talks really soft and you can't, and my
Mhm.
husband's like, what are you saying? And I just said, no, 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 that's when you know. And I don't think he even realizes he does it. It's self-conscious because he can articulate, he's a singer. But if he starts to get overwhelmed or flustered, he will start to mumble. And so I'm like, you need to recognize that's his way of telling you how he's feeling without him being able to realize he's saying. And so we work on that a lot.
Nice,
Because,
nice. How old is he?
well, he's 18.
He's 18. Wow.
Mhm. Yeah, but um, you know, it's been a long road and he's doing great now, but those
Amazing.
are things that you can tell he still has issues. So, do you do any trainings and workshops?
I do. I've been doing some parent trainings locally in Los Angeles, and then I want to expand that, either virtually or uh, more in the greater Los Angeles area as well. But I do want to, just have a greater reach for people.
Yep.
And that's going to be, obviously through the book,
Mhm.
through virtual things, because I'm in Los Angeles now, but I would just spoke with somebody that was in Minnesota this morning, and it's just great to be able to plant that seed across the nation and hopefully across the world.
Yeah. Nope. I think it's definitely something that we don't talk enough about, and we're not as educated. But with you, I mean, social media and marketing, and it could just impact a lot of people. And
Yes.
that's
Yeah.
the bonus of podcasts like this and other types of medias that you can use to be able to get the word out. I think it's great. So
Yeah.
tell me the title of your book.
Play dumb and sabotage. And the subtitle is Mindfully Under Anticipating a Child's Needs and Creating Opportunities to Practice Language.
I love that. That's fantastic. How did you come up with the title?
I've been using that term for so many years now. I don't remember how it came about exactly, but it was the idea of we over anticipate. So let's play dumb,
Mhm.
right? And sometimes kids, like I like to ask absurd questions, like, "Oh, I was like, can we eat a shoe?"
Hmm.
Kids are like, "What?" Or like, "Oh, I know what a sheep says. It says roof roof." And they're like, why are you so dumb? They like love to be smarter than you.
Mhm.
Like playing on that, and then sabotage. It's like, we think of sabotage, the definition of it as being so destructive, right? My mom was like, don't call your book sabotage, it sounds like you're trying to like create damage. I'm like, no, it's like a positive, in a
Mhm.
positive way. Like I said, offering just a little bit of snack,
Mhm.
having a toy that the child might like a lot, but have it just out of reach or up on a shelf where they can see it but not get to it and not try to climb and be unsafe.
Mhm.
But creating opportunities for them to have practice, and everything is about repetition, right? We get better with repetition over and over and over again. So the more we practice something, the better we'll master it in the
I
long
like
run.
that. And I think when you said sabotage at first, I have a habit, my husband likes to point out a lot, where I might try to finish his sentence because he also has a processing issue. And so like I move fast. If I watch a video, I'm going to put it in 1.5 to 2 times. But what I realize is, like I need to back away and let him finish his thought and let him finish his sentence. And sometimes we do get so hurried that we don't give the kids time that they need to be able to process how they're feeling, what they're thinking, what they're trying to say. And sometimes we're wrong about what we think that they're trying to say. And so then they're like, no, and then they're flustered and they have to go back through. So I think of, for me, when I hear what you said, sabotage, is I need to stop and let them push themselves, you know?
Yeah, yeah, that could be definitely part of it as well. Yeah, I find myself trying to finish, my son's because he has a brain injury and stroke. He takes a little bit longer to process things, right? I'll ask him a question and I don't get an answer right away. So I think maybe he was ignoring me or didn't hear me. And so I ask him again, or I start talking and he goes, "I'm thinking, Mom." And I'm like, "Okay, I'm sorry." You
Yeah.
know,
It's true. It's true.
it is true. Yeah.
That's
So
great.
even I need to remind myself. Oh, and another great thing, I really tell parents, don't ask a yes no question unless
Yeah.
you're willing to honor that no.
Mhm.
Oftentimes you'll hear, "Oh, can you do this? Are you ready for this? Would you like to do your work now? Or would you like, can you pick that off the floor, pick up the toy off the floor?" No. And once a child says no, you can't be like, "Well, you have to do it anyway." So you offer those choices. It's like, "Oh, we have to get some things done. Would you like to brush your teeth or change into your pajamas first? Or do you want to do this or that first?" Or I might just tell a kid, like we might be working on articulation. So I might say, "Caterpillar." You say it, rather than, "Can you say caterpillar?"
Ah, I love that. That's something that, because children even need to learn that they have, I don't want to say rights, but they have power, right?
Yeah.
And if you ask a question, I've never thought of it that way, that you need to honor their no, because if I'm going to ask them yes or no, then they learn that no does not mean no. that
Yeah.
you're going to have to do what they say anyway. We were actually having this conversation with one of my kids over the weekend because she had something done where it cost quite a bit of money and she didn't want to pay for it. She was able to get somebody else to pay for it. And we were like, that's called mooching, we're not okay with that. Because it was like $200, right?
Wow.
And so she's like, well, no matter what, you can't say no to this person, which I agree. This person is used to be, they're not like this anymore, but used to be very overbearing. And so I get her point, but at the same time, my husband goes, you didn't have to show up for the appointment. You didn't have to, but she wanted it, and therefore she knew that she was going to have it paid for. So of course, right? But that I think is so important because she has learned in her life, because a lot of people, if she says no, it doesn't matter. We're going to do it anyway, or we're not going to respect that. That is powerful.
Yeah. Like, even to this day, I use that strategy with my son. Instead of saying, oh, do you want to cut your nails today? Oh, do you want to cut your nails today or tomorrow? He always picks tomorrow. But he knows that he's decided it's going to be tomorrow, and when tomorrow comes, we're going to cut our nails.
Wow.
So it's a lot of shaping behavior and offering him choices and having him feel that he is in charge of his schedule in a sense. He's like, oh, he's like, well, in his mind, he's like, well, I'm going to cut my nails, but I'm going to choose when I cut them.
Yeah. You didn't ask me when, Mom. Okay, so what other question have I not asked that you wish I would have? Because that was a powerful nugget. Like you've given a lot of them, but that one is something that I could do better with. So what's another nugget?
Let's see. Do you mind if I grab my book real fast?
Yeah, no, that's fine. Go ahead.
When you're thinking on the spot, you're just like, oh, wait, hold on.
You're like, darn it.
Yeah, I would say, 'cause I talked about asking absurd questions already, right? I think that's really important. And then also like set expectations of what you want that behavior to be, rather than having it just be, it to be an open-ended thing. Let me just pull up an example. So like when we have, I don't know if you've heard of like Tony Robbins, right? So people like have all these needs, basic needs, and one of them is they need the sense of certainty, right? And then they also need a little bit uncertainty, like spontaneity. But kids crave structure, even if they don't know that they need it, right? So some kids are like running around, they're chaotic, and they actually need and want, whether they know it or not, they need it to be in a structured environment in order for them to be like, discombobulate, not be discombobulated,
Right.
centered. So having like a visual schedule is like super helpful. So like like with your son, when he was younger, he might have benefited from a visual schedule where he can refer to all these things that might happen during his day, or even like during a speech session, we might put the activities that we're going to be doing, and when we're done, we can move that over to the done pile. So having something visual, and I think it's helpful for all kids, to move on towards like having your own visual planner, right? I have a paper planner, and if I don't write something down, it doesn't happen.
Right.
So
I can vouch for that because again, I have two special needs sons. The first one, we'd had a schedule on the fridge, and I'd say, okay, we're going to do this. He'd go over to the fridge and he'd go, nope, it's not time yet. We still need to be doing this. And I didn't realize how powerful that was until I'm like, oh, because at that time, I do not like schedules. I'm much better now, but it was forcing me to have to follow the schedule. But for him, he thrived in that. He had to have that. So that's great
Yeah.
advice. That's so good.
Yeah. And also like having a schedule kind of transitions over to like sequencing, right?
Mhm.
Sequencing stories, sequencing events.
Yeah.
So having that translate over into other areas of their life is really important.
Yeah, I think it's good. I think being a parent to me it is the most important thing in life. And yes, my goal and my calling, I would say, is to be able to do these other things in life. But again, being a parent, that's something where I lost the focus for a little bit. I had 4 kids and then we had a huge gap and then we had 2 more. And those 4 kids, I think, had a much better mom than the other 2 because you get tired. And over the last couple of years, I've really been making this huge effort to say, okay, no, this is what I expect, and this is what you need to do. And it's interesting to watch where they went from, like, they're very creative, they have to be busy all the time, but making sure that they know the schedule, they know the expectations, they know the consequences. And sometimes it's hard because if you're trying to start your business, like we went through a huge financial struggle for a while. And so our whole focus was getting out of that financial hole. There's a story in the previous episodes about that. And so they were kind of left on their own. Like we were there, but emotionally, we had checked out because we were so focused on that. And so to come back where things have settled down and okay, well, you have parents again. We're all here for you. They're like, oh, but they do need it.
Yeah, absolutely. And having 6 kids, that's amazing. That's a feat of in it within itself. I have 1 child.
Mhm.
And it's hard. And having 2 kids with special needs is
Mhm.
very difficult, I'm sure.
It was, but I wouldn't change it. I mean, it's been great, but they think there's good and bad because they have each other to play with. They have each other, but at the same time, not all of our focus is on that one person. And sometimes that's good, sometimes that might not be. I don't know, but it is what it is.
Yeah. When you're saying consequences and rewards and consequences kind of thing, I always joke that my first book is Play Dumb and Sabotage, and the next one's going to be Bribes and Threats. And then we're going to finish it off with Contracts and Treaties. So put it out there and I'm like, maybe I'll write a
I
trilogy
love that.
about it.
I love that
Because it's
because
all about that. Yeah, it's all about bribes and threats now.
Well, and the funny part was the contracts. Like I have come across because we moved, I have come across again, my oldest son was special needs, so many contracts with this boy that
Oh
I
yeah.
laugh. Like I've actually held on to him because I chuckle and I laugh and I've sent him I'll take a picture because he's 24 now. He doesn't live with us. And I'll send it to him and he just kind of chuckles because it's like he wanted to be in this play. And I said, okay, well, if you want to be in this play, then you need to get this homework done and you need to have your room clean. And if you don't do this, this is what's going to happen. And, oh, the contracts that we had.
Oh yeah. And then like the treaties are like,
Yeah.
okay, and maybe we're arguing, but we can figure this out,
Right. Yeah.
So no, that's great to hear. Because I can maybe there's definitely a niche for that.
Yeah. No, there definitely is. So I think that's great. Well,
Yeah.
it has been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on. You've given so much good advice that we as parents absolutely need because we don't have it all. We're not given this manual. And unfortunately, you have one kid and then it starts over again and you have to tweak it for the next child. So thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thank you so much.
And Unbreakable Moms, I hope that you have been able to take some nuggets from our conversation that talks about how to parent when sometimes we just don't know, but there are things that we can do that Jeaneen has shared. So go out, apply it to your kids, give them a big hug, and make it a great day. See you later. Beautiful moms, remember, you are unbreakable. Keep illuminating the world with your strength, pursuing your dreams, and reveling in the splendor of motherhood. This is Charisse Walker, bidding you farewell for now. Stay tuned for more empowering conversations on the next episode of the Unbreakable Mompreneurs podcast. Until then, keep shining bright. Signing off with love, Charisse Walker.